our feature presentation.
What is it?
Yu-Gi-Oh cards!
Who do you think those could be for?
Me, I asked for Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Bionicle!
Oh my gosh.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? It's the Jenny, it's a Gwynny, it's whatever. It's Pokemon Ruby version.
This is probably my most intense memory of Christmas morning. There's undeniably something about game consoles under the Christmas tree that makes young children go absolutely feral. That following Christmas, I got 3 GameCube games.
What's the Zelda the Wind Waker? Command Mission and Sonic. Oh my gosh.
That evening, we had no parties to go to, and my family just stayed home. The memory of the dimly lit living room, the glow of the TV, and the Christmas lights, the snow softly falling outside, while I got to hang out with some of my favorite characters all evening, is one of my most cherished childhood memories. One of those moments that you just have this gut feeling of wanting to go back and relive it. Christmas time seems to be one of the most powerful forces to bring out nostalgia. I mean, it makes sense. Year after year, it's almost the same decorations, the same music, the same movies, the same food, the same events and family gatherings. It's enough to drive some people insane, which I do understand, but for me, it just reinforces my identity as a chronically nostalgic millennial, something that defines my life just as much outside of the holiday season. Everything from indulging in old media, especially on its original hardware, to revisiting places I used to love when I was younger, especially food establishments, to easily getting sucked into early 2000s aesthetic montages, and way too many conversations with friends echoing,
"Remember Pokemon? It was a good game!"
Overall, living in my nostalgia has been a large part of my adult life. Perhaps too large. I think there's a lot to be talked about when it comes to nostalgia's role in today's culture, but just for now, I believe you don't have to look any further than within yourself to experience the dark side of nostalgia. This is one of my favorite stores. It's filled wall to wall with old movies, video games, toys. It feels like a museum of artifacts from my childhood. Not only that, but it's inside the mall I went to most as a kid and worked at when I was on break during my college years. Coming here today is one of the most grounding things I can do for myself. On top of that, I'm a strong believer in the preservation of physical media of any format. That's a story for a different day, but it provides a deeper sense of meaning behind me coming here. I wonder what 18-year-old me would have thought of this place, though. Long story short, that 18-year-old was having one of the worst years of his life. He knew he chose the wrong college very early on and was counting the days before he could get a fresh start as a transfer student his sophomore year. This was the first year he dove headfirst into nostalgia. Any movie, video game, food, place that he could travel to during breaks, anything that brought him back to the safety of childhood was fully indulged in. Why did I commit to talking in a third person here? Sorry, that's just not going to be sustainable for the rest of this. Moving on. Was this healthy for me? At the time, was seeking comfort in the safe and familiar helping build my resilience and getting through a tough period of time? Yes, and because of that, I think it was a perfectly healthy way to cope, at least compared to other options for coping. Did I maintain a healthy mindset with my relationship to nostalgia in the years to follow? Not so much. To quickly and bluntly sum up the years that followed, I would ground myself and find happiness in forcibly trying to recreate old memories from all chapters of my life. This extreme need to find mental stability during my freshman year laid too much of a groundwork for how I'd regularly seek out joy in life. I need to be honest with myself by addressing that my inner narrative for years to come was, hey, remember that one thing that felt good that one time? Let's create that so I can re-experience that moment and feel like I'm back in that time and not in the current time I'm living. There's absolutely nothing inherently wrong with the actions of this mindset. Repetition, rituals, seeking comfort in the familiar, for whatever reason, it's all part of the human experience. But here's what happened to me, specifically because of my inner narrative. After a while, this repetition stopped feeling good. Many times, it actively made me feel worse. Because when I was telling myself, I'm not happy, but this thing in the past made me happy, so I'm gonna relive the past. And then when this thing in the past doesn't make me happy, it makes me feel even worse than before. Worse than that, I would put it all on me. Like it was my fault I wasn't grateful enough to enjoy this reliably happy thing. Or like I'm not strong enough to pull myself out of the depression I'm feeling in the moment. Over time, the more I relied on nostalgia as my main source of happiness in my life, the less happy I became. The ironic thing about nostalgia is that it can be unreliable. Just because something made you happy once doesn't mean it's still going to fulfill the part of you it once did. Whether you've grown out of it, became sick to death of it, or your in-the-moment mental state just isn't in the right place to receive it. And sometimes, the things you thought would always be there for you are just as susceptible to change as you are. Like I said before, left unchecked, you don't have to go any further than within yourself to experience the dark side of nostalgia.
Ready to feel old? Recently I've noticed that a lot of people have been looking back nostalgically on the years roughly between like 2013, 2014, which makes sense. It's been about 10 years since, if you can believe that. It's usually about the time where feelings of nostalgia will start to pop up. But for me, I feel like I've always kind of looked back on those years with pretty intense nostalgia for reasons I didn't quite understand until more recently. Driving these back roads just outside of my hometown always brings me right back to those years, in particular the summers. This fills me with memories of driving to work at JCPenney, relying on Tim Hortons for breakfasts or lunches, obviously the music I was listening to at the time, hanging out with friends, filming weird video projects, chilling in my room as I was on a multi-year quest to finish all the mainline Zelda games. Thinking about it now, these memories feel almost as pure as my childhood ones. There's a longing to go back to this time. There's just one thing that doesn't make sense though. Those years of my life were horrible, like, for reasons I don't even feel like getting into right now. Long story short, despite having fond memories of other areas of my life, my existence was largely dictated by depression and anxiety those 2 summers. Like, what happened? How am I so quick to remember the good, but the bad became more of an afterthought? With any nostalgic moment, there's a very quick, automatic feeling of wanting to go back and live in that time. But if I think about this time of my life longer than 30 seconds, hell no, I would never want to return to what I was dealing with during those summers.
Of course, there's a baseline amount of romanticizing the past that's impacted my relationship to nostalgia my entire life. It's pretty obvious the good memories being weighed more heavily in my head is a coping mechanism. But once I finally thought a little deeper about what this time felt like, it hit me. It's not the things I would do that brought me happiness. It's how I did them. From the friend hangouts to the nights chilling at home, it was all so free, sporadic, in the moment.
It's almost 4 o'clock in the morning!
There was nothing pre-calculated or planned or artificially recreated. These moments just happened naturally.
Okay! Didn't expect that to happen.
This is how all my cherished childhood and teenhood nostalgic memories were forged. And those years of 2013, 2014, me being roughly 20 years old, really were the final years of my life that I lived with that adolescent ability to just go with the flow.
We're never filming in winter on trails
No.
ever again.
Yeah, we will probably, but we'll be more prepared next time.
So does that mean I just have to be more spontaneous in my life today if I hope to chase those feelings of joy like I once did? Yes and no. The spontaneity was really just a byproduct of being open to new experiences and living in the moment, finding joy in what might be right in front of me rather than behind me. I don't think I'm the only one that feels like that kind of in-the-moment joy gets increasingly more difficult to find the older you get. And in many ways, that's just part of growing up and having more responsibilities towards yourself and others. Planning friendship hangouts turns from, hey, what are you doing right now? Let's meet up, to, I think I'm free Thursday evening 3 weeks from now. Even just an evening to myself to watch a movie with takeout feels like it requires 2 days of advance notice and hours of battling decision fatigue of what food am I going to order, what movie am I going to watch, how much time can I devote to a movie, do I get the pizza with pepperoni, mushrooms, onions, and broccoli, or do I just stick to pepperoni because I'm on a budget? But I don't think my life is so jam-packed that there's no opportunity to ride the in-the-moment inspiration for something that could bring me joy, whether alone or with others. That's what's been missing in my understanding of nostalgia. That what the moments I'm nostalgic for were born out of a youthful spirit and in-the-moment pursuit of joy. Of course, I'm not a kid anymore. Life does have a different flow and rhythm. I can't live my life entirely with that adolescent mindset, but there's still so much room for welcoming new experiences and chasing what feels right, joyful, and comforting in the moment. That's not to say nostalgia doesn't have its place in my life, though. Its presence and meaning to me is still quite strong, but I feel my relationship with it is far more balanced. My intentions are not to relive the past, but welcoming the familiar comforts of a time gone by serves as a powerful way to ground myself amidst today's challenges, but especially as a way to feel intimately connected to myself as a whole. This is gonna sound ridiculously cheesy and sentimental, and who cares, it's Christmas time. When I'm holding this GameCube controller, I'm holding the same thing my 8-year-old self once did. These games mean so much to me that once I have kids, I want to share these experiences with them too. When I hold this GameCube controller, it's almost like the me of the present is holding hands with my 8-year-old self, and hopefully one day, my 8-year-old child. And I think that's a beautiful thing. By reminding myself that the joy of today is the nostalgia of tomorrow, I feel this deep connection to myself in the past, present, and future. Or, I guess in fewer words, sometimes it's good to rewind.